back to the Commanders Declassified Podcast, your home for all things Washington Commanders. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube, on all audio platforms, wherever you can find podcasts. You can find us there. Please get subscribed. Make sure you check out commanders247.com as well. And all our Twitter handles are here in the video. We are coming to you to talk to you about minicamp and some of the really cool things that we saw there as our team starts to develop. And we're going to go to our minicamp reporter, Brian, to give us like his minicamp update, I guess.
Yes. So we've been all waiting to see Chase Young, and he's here. He came. He almost conquered. He went through drills and team periods, no issues. He looked healthy. He looked like he was in shape. He was wearing a giant knee brace on there. Little concerning, even though that the injury was a long time ago. But otherwise, he looked healthy. So he was there. Montez Sweat was there. Charles Leno was there. Those were the three guys who were missing from OTAs. They were all there. All looked healthy. All looked in shape. Now they've got to get learning everything and get up to speed. The big thing was the offense and the quarterback, as always. So Sam Howell, who continues to get the first team reps, according to Zach Selby from the team's website, he was 15 of 24 today. For the most part, he was sharp all day. In the middle of practice, though, is where he struggled. He went 1 for 5 during I think like a 7-on-7 type period, where he went 1 for 5 and had an interception in that. Ball got, I think he was late on it. Ball got tipped up. Khaleke Hudson, we've heard Khaleke Hudson's name a couple of times here. We'll talk about him in a few minutes. Dove and made a really nice interception on him. So seems with Hal, he makes some great throws, some eye-popping throws, and then he'll have a rookie throw where he throws it late, where he throws it ill-advised, or he tries to fit it where he thinks he can fit it. But overall, been steady. Does need some work. Jacoby Brissett has been solid with the twos. He hasn't yet gotten a bunch of first team reps. Rivera did say at the press conference today that they'll, continue like this, and after this week, they'll evaluate whether or not that the rep distribution of first team reps needs to change for training camp. But so far, that's where they're at right now. And Khaleke Hudson, he made some plays today, and Jamin Davis is still out. He took part in some individual stuff, but he got a knee scope, which pretty minor, nothing too serious, but a little bit minor, and he didn't do some of the team stuff. But overall, the defense looks sharp. Again, no pads. This is all helmets and shorts. The offense did struggle a little bit, but they're making a lot of progress.
Yeah, I was doing the math on the completion percentage, and it 62%, 62.5% is what it came out to be. Now, it's minicamp, so take from that what you will. And again, if you're going to make mistakes, this is the time to do it. I think you'd like to see a little bit higher completion percentage. But I'm glad that he's making throws, right? He's challenging himself with throws and not just. Yeah, I think there was go back to some of the other quarterbacks we had previously, and they weren't throwing the ball. They would just run with it or, get rid of it. Like challenge yourself to throw the football and see what
And
happens.
that was one of the things Mitch Tischler said, and I just watched John Keim before this. They said that, while Brissett was completing a majority of his passes, a lot of them were check downs. So even in the 7-on-7 period, they were check downs where Sam is trying to push the ball down the field. And I think it's something we've got to kind of balance. Like, all right, is this interception against the first team? Is that him being careless? Is that him, trying to push the limits of what he can do? Like, okay, I can get away with that in the game. Okay, no, I'm not going to be able to get away with that. So it's just something for people to kind of keep perspective. When training camp comes and the pads are on, that'll be really where we kind of see, okay, he's not getting it. We really need to figure something else out. Or, hey, it looks okay. So we'll see.
Yeah, we said it before, and we'll say it again. when they scrimmage against the Ravens or practice against the Ravens, that's when you're really going to know. And you said it well. If he's trying to figure out whether or not he can throw the football, now is the time to do it, right? Into certain windows and make certain throws and fail fast and fail hard here so that you progressively get better with your decision making as training camp progresses. Hey, Eric, Chase Young and the knee brace, big deal or not a big deal?
No, he had a massive knee injury a couple of years ago. Knee injuries are, he had his knee injury was borderline catastrophic. It wasn't like a torn ACL. That wasn't just what it was. It was he basically blew up his knee. So it was a complete knee reconstruction that he had. So there's a big difference between that and somebody like what Fidarian Matthews had, which was just a straight ACL tear. And I think he's out there with like just a little, like a knee brace, like a little pad on it, or not even anything on it. It's a long road back from that type of injury. And you saw that last year with his injury, right? Like it took, 13, 14 weeks for him to get back. And he had to play himself back into shape. The knee brace is going to be a fixture for a while until he's 100% confident in that knee. It may come off at some point this year. He may play this entire year with it. He's going to learn how to have to deal with that. By all accounts, he moved really well today. He looked very explosive. So it may not be much of a hindrance, but I mean, it's just something you're going to have to get used to. I don't think I don't know, I've kind of heard some intimations that, people are, he's soft or whatever because of this. I don't like that at all. It was a serious knee injury. It was a major knee injury this dude had. And that can't be understated enough. Like he really, really wrecked his knee. So this isn't something where, they took their time, and I think they did it right last year. It was frustrating, but they did it right last year by holding him out as long as they did. They got him in at the end of the season. Hopefully he's ready to go week one. I'd love to see the knee brace come off, but it's got to come off when it's ready to come off. And right now it's not. Doesn't seem to be hindering him, so let's see what happens with it.
Yeah, and I like what you said there, like the confidence. The player has to have confidence in that knee before that comes off, because if you don't, if he takes it off too soon, he's going to play slow. He's going to try to protect it, and that's when you start to increase your injury risk when you're starting to do things like that. So if it's not impacting his game by having it on, let him wear it, right? Until he can fully build back his confidence in his knee. So, fellas, to me, the star of minicamp has been Eric Bieniemy. And I'm actually pretty happy to say that, because I really thought that he had a lot of questions to answer, right? In terms of running his own shop. Brian, what are your impressions been so far of Bieniemy thus far into camp in the offseason?
He is who I thought he was. He is an individual who knows exactly what he wants offensively. Whether or not it will actually come up, work on the field on Sundays, that's a whole separate discussion. But for right now, he is who I thought he was going to be, which was somebody who has a standard, a high standard, and he's going to hold the guys to that standard, and he's not going to accept anything less than that. And for far too long, we've had coaches and we've had players who've accepted the less part, right? They've accepted, okay, we'll make mistakes. They've accepted the mediocrity. They've accepted, oh, we'll start slow in games. We'll start 2-4. Bieniemy's not going to put up with that. And if they are losing, he's not going to be somebody to kind of be laughing and joking around and be okay with that. He's going to let everybody know about that's not okay. We're going to do things right. We're going to get it right from day one. No matter how many times we have to rep it, we're going to figure it out. We're going to get it right. One of the tweets today from one of the radio personnel reporters who was out there was that Bieniemy pulled somebody out of, they were doing team offense and they were doing a drill, a play, and somebody just wasn't going hard. The reporter didn't want to say the person's particular name. It wasn't a starter, but I guess a role player of some sort. And he pulled him out and was like, nope, somebody else will take your spot today. And he just kept moving and the offense kept going. And I love that because it lets everybody know you can't half step it. You can't slack around. You need to know your assignments. You need to know what you're doing. Hey, if you make a mistake, that's okay. But you can't not put forth the effort because all the other guys are putting forth the effort. And if you want to win, you've got to have that full buy-in from everybody. So I love it so far. Hopefully it translates to points. I can't do 19 points again. So hopefully that translates to points on Sunday. But from right now, I love it. I love all of it.
Yeah, I think the direct quote was, we're not F word wasting reps. or something like that, right? Like he was livid that somebody would waste a practice rep not giving their all. I love it. I think it's incredible. I think it's the kind of energy that we have needed. Eric, is there a shelf life on this type of coaching though?
First of all, so it's funny that he said that because I attended a Redskins minicamp back in, I think it was a training camp in 14. And one of the standout moment for me was Sean McVay there in his first season as offensive coordinator, screaming at a wide receiver for wasting reps. Literally the exact same quotes. I think that's awesome. That bodes well. Also bodes terribly because it's going to be another offensive coordinator that saves our head coach's job and we lose him next year. But we'll worry about that in 20, right? As far as the shelf life, look, yeah, I just think there is that hard-nosed coaching is great. It's exactly what this team needs right now because Scott Turner wasn't a good offensive coordinator. He wasn't a hard coach. I don't want to say players maybe didn't respect him, but I think they stopped listening to him. This is a new voice. This is a new direction, a new approach to coaching. And I think right now players are eating it up. As far as how long that's going to go, I have to, you can only get screamed at for so long before it just becomes white noise. I think it's a 2 or 3 years that it probably starts to wear thin unless you're constantly bringing in new guys. But you just got to enjoy it while it's going on right now because it's working. And I think it'll work, and I think it will have an impact this year. But we'll see how long it lasts if he's still around, right? Because, like I said, if the team blows up this year, if it's a great season, he's likely gone. Ron Rivera will be back, and Eric Bieniemy will be a head coach somewhere else, and he'll go the way of McVay and O'Connell and all the other guys. If it doesn't work out this year, everybody's gone, right? So, I think this is a 1-year deal with Bieniemy, unless there's something in the works to promote him to head coach that we don't know about yet. We'll see. We'll worry about that next year. As of right now, it's exactly what this team needs. Enjoy it while it's here. But yeah, I do think at some point either he needs to change his approach or it will just stop working.
Yeah, you got to see it in November and December when you're losing by 16 points, right? In the fourth quarter, and you're trying to scream at guys like that to it's a different time, right? But now it's everybody's opportunistic, everybody feels good. It'll work, and I think it can work for a duration of time as long as you meter it, right? Use it when you need it. You know what I'm saying? Don't let this be your entire coaching approach. And one of the things about him, or that was said about him, was he's very, very hard nosed, and players just don't really like that in today's NFL. Which some were saying was holding him back from becoming a head coach. But I think our players are receptive to it, and I think that has a lot to do with the kind of player that Ron Rivera seeks out. Right? He sees high quality, high character guys. And I think it's working right now. We'll see when the season starts. If it doesn't amount to wins, it's just somebody yelling at you. So
I think one of the other things, somebody made a good point on Twitter today that I wish I'll try to give them credit later if I remember. But it's a similar thing with Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick was able to kind of act that way and behave that way because he won so early. It reinforced that behavior, that no nonsense. Kind of approach. If he hadn't have won early, it, like Eric was saying, it would have wore thin, and he probably would have had a 2, 3, 4 year shelf life, and it would have been over quickly. But because he won so much, even the players took on that same mantra, mindset of, hey, you can't waste anything. It's the Belichick way, right? It's the New England way. So if we can win here, right, if it works with Bieniemy and the offense is moving and they're scoring points, guys will buy in. It's like you said, Ellie, when we're down 16 points, we're losing, it's late in the year, and none of the things that he's been telling them works. That's when it all blows up and goes bad.
The other thing you could do when you have a coach like that is you really have to rely on position coaches and the guys that are coaching that are actually coaching the players directly, most of the time that are in the room with them. If they have a personality that is not quite as hard-nosed as Bieniemy, that's probably going to benefit the players as well, because then you've got the good cop, bad cop mentality, which tends to extend the shelf life on that type of hard coaching philosophy. Same thing as if your position coach is that in-your-face guy. You have a coordinator or a head coach that's a players type coach that's approachable. It's just it's a fine line. It's kind of a dance that you have to do, and you got to figure it out. We'll see how it goes for the season. I don't foresee it being a problem this year, and even in 24 if he's back, I don't foresee it being a long term issue or a short term issue. But I think long term, you may see some complaints, some grumbling from players. That's down the road, though. Don't worry about it now.
Right. You know, I've noticed that the media seems like they're starting to hedge a little bit on the quarterback situation, right? I know a lot of the media, if you read through tweets, JP Finlay, some other people are starting to report about Howell being up and down, right, in minicamp. And this really sort of came to a peak when Chris Russell went all in on Sam Howell. It was either late last week, I think it was, when he was talking about Howell being awful right at some point in camp. And I haven't really seen any other reporters say anything close to that. But I think his words were, sometimes he just looks like he sucks. This was Chris Russell. Now, Eric, when you're hearing that at this point in camp, what are you doing with that information?
Filing it in the I don't care file. I don't want to name names. You might have just done it. There are certain reporters who just are Chicken Little type reporters who just everything is the worst it can possibly be at all times. You got to tune those guys out. It's not productive. It doesn't do anything. He's got an angle. That's his thing. He gets a lot of hate clicks. He lives it up. He's like Russell's like the WWE heel type guy. He just thrives on that attention. He gets that, and that gets him paid, right? Good for him. He's found his angle and it works for him. But I don't take him seriously, honestly, in a lot of respects. Not that I don't think he knows what's going on inside the building, but I just think that he benefits from negativity. So in his case, there's only I only take his so far. I think the hedging is probably right because I think early on people were really impressed by what Howell looked like, and as camp went on, or the OTAs went on, and now in the minicamp, they're going to start seeing some cracks in that. It's expected. He's his first year as a starting quarterback potentially. So I think you need to hedge. I don't think if guys were just like if it was just roses all around and sunshine and rainbows, this the fan base and everybody would be in for a rude awakening come season. So I think the hedging is good. I don't think he's the next Patrick Mahomes, the next Tom Brady, but I don't think he's Nathan Peterman either. I think you're going to see probably an up and down performance this year. Hopefully more good than bad, but it remains to be seen. But yeah, if people are just piling on saying how terrible he looked, which contradicts basically everything else that every other reporter is saying, or just focuses on the negative. You just got to file that away and understand the source.
My favorite Chris Russell thing was back when the Eagles cut Deshaun Jackson. He said that the then Redskins would never sign Deshaun Jackson because he wasn't their type of player, and that if they did, he would quit. Of course, we know we scooped up Deshaun Jackson immediately, and he never quit. So he had to live that one down for years on the radio.
Yeah, it's reporting or listening to reports is kind of like anything you do with statistics, right? You throw out your best result and you throw out your worst result, right? Chris Russell was the worst report we heard in terms of performance from Sam Howell. Chuck it out the window. Then you take whoever was the best. It's like, oh, this guy's the second coming of Joe Montana. Chuck it out the window, right? And then you live with what is the more consistent report, which is he looks good. There are moments when he has periods of regression, which is natural, and then you sort of see him building from there. One thing I think I saw you put on social media, Brian, was speaking to how he rebounds from his mistakes, right? So he'll get into a little bit of a funk, and you'll see some mistakes, some bad throws, a couple interceptions in a team period, but he always seems to come back to being able to end or at least produce another positive result after the negative. He doesn't go into a hole and completely tank and fall apart when a negative play happens. Which kind of gives me like it's sort of like that Heineke versus Kirk Cousins type thing to me. Remember Kirk Cousins when he made a mistake? Well, the thing that Jay Gruden hated about Kirk Cousins was the fact that he was sulking on the sidelines, right? After he made mistakes, he had his head down. It really got to him and it bothered him, right? One thing the coaching staff Ron Rivera loved about Heineke was Every time he didn't care about the mistakes he made, right? Hey, screw it. I'm gonna go out and live another play. And I think you have to have that as a quarterback. And when I hear you talk about Jacoby Brissett and sort of what he's doing, and he's playing it safe in minicamp, right? And you don't win jobs being Teddy Bridgewater in minicamp. I love Teddy B, by the way, but you don't win jobs in minicamp over young rookies who are promising by being safe in minicamp. You know what I mean? You got to be willing to take chances, throw the ball down the field, see what happens. You got to win the job. You can't wait for somebody else to lose the job. Hopefully, that's not what's going on with Brissett. I like Brissett a lot. You guys know that, but you cannot win that job being safe and dinking and dunking in minicamp.
Yeah, I think Brissett is he's playing like a backup quarterback in minicamp because that's what you want your backup to do: come in and play it safe and get through a game. That's what sounds like what Brissett's doing in minicamp. Brissett's never been a gunslinger type quarterback. He's never been that guy though. And I don't think, at age 31 or whatever he is, he's going to turn into that guy at this point. I think if he's on the field, this is why, if Sam Howell stinks it up and Brissett wins the starting job, I don't even want to think about what it's going to be like trying to get through 17 games. Just knowing what you have, I just would rather have an unknown in Sam Howell than just the tedious boredom of watching. No offense, but I mean he's a long-term backup for a reason, right? He's never beaten a legit starter out for a job. He's a solid backup quarterback. I mean, you need those guys in the NFL, but just the prospect of playing 17 games with him under center just makes me I don't even want to watch football this year if I have to do that. It's going to be very difficult to get through the season if that's the case. Now, Sam Howell's probably going to make a lot more mistakes than Brissett will.
Oh yeah,
you hope he learns from those, but yeah, Brissett just sounds like he knows he's the backup quarterback and he's going to make backup quarterback type plays. That's fine if he's the backup. Let's do it.
Yeah,
it'd be hard for me to not take chances, right? If I'm a quarterback on that roster and I see Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, apparently we have the tallest tight end room in the NFL. I would be trying to take chances with that talent at my disposal. So, yeah, I think if you're a quarterback and you're on this offense and you have that at your disposal, take some chances now, right? This is minicamp, this is OTAs. Take those chances now. See what you can get away with. See what you can do. See what some of those guys' limits are. If you discover that, hey, Cole Turner is amazing, and can jump 10 feet in the air and catch these, high passes, do it. Find out.
Go ahead.
The quarterback room this year should just be like the Taylor Heineke quote: Terry down there somewhere.
Well,
got good receivers.
Brian, to your point though, Brissett is what he is. So coming in and being something completely different could get you cut. You know what I'm saying? It's especially as a backup quarterback, where your whole mentality is just stick on the roster so you keep a job. I understand the conservative approach, and it's really hard to get out of that mentality because you played your whole career for job security, right? Not necessarily to win games. And so he's being safe with the football, not turning it over, not giving you a reason to cut him. Looking at his starts last year for Cleveland, points-wise, they put up 26 week 1, 30 week 2, 29. I mean, they were putting up a little bit of points, more than we were. 20, 28, 15, 20. Then the bottom started to fall out, right? Then it was 15, 20, 13, 17, 23, 23. So he really kind of feels like if Brissett starts, you're going to be in that slightly above Scott Turner, point total range, maybe 2 points better than that. Now, he's conservative. So you could theoretically win more games with Brissett than you would with Howell, but it would be a much more boring brand of football if that happens because you're hedging on you're not going to have those turnovers. You're probably going to have more run attempts, things like that formula that worked last year. But that's not what Eric Bieniemy is here for, right? He is here to fix this offense, right? And see what we have in Sam Howell and see if he can elevate him. Now, if Sam Howell falters and we're still in a really good position, or if just for whatever reason during training camp, they're like, this dude ain't it, then you got to do what you got to do. And I would expect the coaches to be honest. And though, generally speaking, I agree with you guys. If the ship's going to fall apart, let it fall all the way apart, right? And you go down sinking with Howell and get the best possible quarterback, KJ Jefferson, next year, right? As opposed to, I'm going to try to win 8 games again with a guy like Jacoby Brissett. I like Brissett a lot, but man, this has got to be about, if it ain't about this year, it's got to be about next year. And as soon as you realize this year ain't working out, you got to go and say, look, we need to get the best possible pick, that we can. So
one thing to remember with Brissett too is, I was looking at this earlier today. The Browns were the 6th highest NFL or team in the NFL in rush yards. They ran the football. They had both starting guards, Wyatt Teller, Joe Bitonio, Pro Bowlers. Their running back, Nick Chubb, Pro Bowler. So they really tried to protect Brissett the best they could. They ran a ton of that, and a lot of those points early on in the year, a lot of that was, Nick Chubb and that offensive line dominating early in the year, and then the offensive line fell off as well too. But he had a really good offensive line. He had a great running game, and he might not have that here. So if his performance was like that there in this offense, is probably going to be a little bit more asked of him here. And I would take Nick Chubb over anybody in our backfield right now, and I would take the Browns offensive line and their offensive line coach, Bill Callahan, over what we've got here as well. So, if Howell's not the guy, just suck all the way through and get that draft pick, because 6-7 wins isn't that isn't going to do anything for anybody,
including this coaching staff.
Yeah,
isn't going to save Ron Rivera's job. It's just, it's like it's 11, 12 wins in playoff run. So if we're at a point where we have to start Jacoby Brissett, I assume Ron Rivera is already fired or well on his way out the door. I don't think Jacoby Brissett's going to save Ron's job. He's 17-32 as a career as a starter. And even last year, his quote unquote best year, the team went 5-7 with him as under center, 5-8, something like that. So it's just he's not saving anybody's job. And you got to Smith last year, who had a career year, but again, would they go 9-8, pick 20th, miss the playoffs? Like, is that what you want? Not really. Just roll with Howell, stink if you have to.
Yep. That's it.
Yeah. I think his best year was with the Colts, if I'm not mistaken. I think even then, I'm trying to find it here. I think, he had a year where he was 18-6 touchdown interception, 3,000 yards, 88 QB rating. I guess it depends on the number of starts he got. He also had a year where he threw for over 3,000 yards, close to 3,100 in New England. The only way I want to see Brissett is if he wins the job out of the gates at camp. It's a different conversation for me at that point in time. But once Howell's in the driver's seat for week 1, just let him go all the way through. Whatever happens, happens, because we set to that misery last year of the Willie Woney quarterback situation. I have no desire to go through that again, where we're all thinking, hey, is Ron going to bench Howell this week like we did with Heineke last year, right? Or Wentz last year. It was like, hey, when's Wentz going to the bench, or when's Heineke going to the bench? And, so I just want clarity at the quarterback position this year, right, wrong, or indifferent. That's what I want to see. Brian, running backs, I still feel like we're not getting a lot of information on running backs at camp so far. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's been eerily quiet about the running backs. Outside of EB yelling at Chris Rodriguez to move faster, back of that first week of OTAs. We got I wouldn't call it a blow up with Brian Robinson last week. Brian Robinson messed up a rep, and he knew it immediately. And Bieniemy, got on him about it, and Brian Robinson was equally as animated, but it was all in a good thing. He was, both of them were trying to get better and trying to be better on the play. So it wasn't any type of issue. But outside of that, we haven't heard of anything, and a lot of that is because in OTAs and minicamp today, the focus has all been the pass game. They have run very few running plays. And that's a difference that Bieniemy has brought, right? In this time where there's no pads, it's very hard to kind of get exactly how the run game is going to look. Versus last year where Scott Turner spent a lot of this time working on the run game, which actually cost us a couple of OTA days because guys were too physical. Guys were, hitting each other and falling down to the ground during OTAs, which cost us. So, hey, you've got a young quarterback. They are working on the pass game. So there have been very few runs at all so far. It's been all pass. So the defense knows, hey, everything is going to be a pass. They're zeroing in on that. So I think that also lends itself to not hearing too much about the running back. I would expect as soon as we put the pads on, there will be a lot of running. There will be a lot of emphasis on the running backs. What's Antonio Gibson's role going to look like? What's Brian Robinson's role? How does Chris Rodriguez fit in there? And then, Jonathan Williams, Jarrett Patterson, can any of those guys make a mark for themselves? But it's been mostly passing, and I think that's why we haven't heard too much about the running backs.
Yep, I agree with that. Eric, now that this phase is over, what are you looking forward to the most when training camp gets underway?
More to talk about. I like the stories. Training camp, I am, anxiously following the path of Kaz Allen, the future training camp superstar. I think he's gonna be the guy I want to see. That's who I assume it's going to be. I'm curious to see if there's anybody else shows up that the fans just fall in love with preseason, and then wonder why it didn't make the roster. Complain that we lost out on him, but good luck to Kaz Allen. I see that from him. I understand everybody really likes him right now, but there's no contact. But I mean, everybody looks at those highlight tapes and sees the long runs, and they don't notice that nobody's near him the whole time, and he doesn't really. I'm curious to see what happens when somebody actually touches him. What happens? What's going to happen? But anyway, I went off on a tangent there. But yeah, he's going to be my preseason Marcus Mason Award winner for preseason superstar. He's the early favorite, but we'll keep tabs on that. But just the action. I just enjoy training camp is one of my favorite times of the year because there's so much because there's been that kind of dearth of information for so long. You've got the 6 weeks or whatever before training camp starts, where it's just a lull, and just the only time of the year now at the NFL is just silent. So just going from that to this explosion of multiple stories every day, it's amazing. So training camp wise, that's why that's what I'm looking forward to. Position wise, I'm curious about the tight ends. If there's going to be somebody, people have been saying Logan Thomas looks really good right now. Can Cole Turner live up to kind of the hype that he was seeing last year? Now that Rogers is gone, can somebody like Curtis Hodges step up? So there's a lot going on there. I look forward to that kind of stuff. The position battles, tight end will be one that I watch mostly because I think the bulk of the position groups outside of that are really set. That backup, that second receiving tight end, blocking tight end, Bates probably has that locked up. But I'll be curious to see that. So just overall, I'm excited about the news. Right? Lots of information coming in at once. It's going to be a long, after minicamp ends next week, or the last OTA session next week, there's just going to be nothing for 6 weeks or so, and that's going to suck. Training camp will roll around. That went right around the corner.
My least favorite day of training camp is the day they report, because then you get all the reports about who reported, who didn't report. I hate that nonsense.
I don't care about John Bates' drip game. Just want to hear some football.
Right. Brian, who's your Simi Cobbs all-season champ award late round guy, or a guy that is at the bottom of the roster that, as Eric pointed out, fans are just going to lose their minds over and be really upset they don't make the roster, and we've ruined everything, and we have the stupidest front office in the league because we didn't keep X. Who's X for you?
I'm trying to think. Obviously, Kaz Allen is that guy, right? You think about Lake C. Strunk, those types of guys who they come in, they have a splash play in a preseason game, and you're like, well, that's it. He's a Hall of Famer, and then you never hear from him again. There doesn't seem to be that many guys that I don't think will make the roster. But I do want to see what Christian Holmes. I mean, he's buried now. We drafted a first round corner, and then we drafted a second round, I guess nickel corner in Quan Martin, even though Benjamin St. Juice has been working in at the nickel as well too. Can he make this team? Like it's not necessarily guaranteed that he'll make it. He's a 7th round pick. He had 2 starts last year. One was good, the other was bad, and then he played special teams. So can he do something? I really want to see what's going on with Khaleke Hudson. Khaleke was a guy I've been high on the whole time, and he just never did anything. Absolutely. He had me fooled the entire time. Like nothing ever happened. But we're getting reports from Jack Del Rio, who's been talking about Khaleke Hudson. We've seen him in a couple of highlight plays. Again, it's just helmets, so I don't know if any of that's real. So I really want to see something with those guys. Do they have something there, or did I just kid myself?
Yeah, we were all on the Christian Holmes train last year, and then barbecue chicken as soon as the game started. Barbecue chicken. A couple of guys I think that are going to be in that like fan favorite category. Let's see. Zion Bowens, the wide receiver out of Hawaii. I think a lot of folks are going to see him. He reminds me a little bit of Ryan Grant, just sort of in his play style. But I think that's one of the guys because he'll probably get a lot of run in preseason. The guys are like, dude, 1,000-yard receiver right there. Jalen Sample, the big wide receiver, because we really don't have one of those. He's a guy I think fans are going to say, we need that guy on this roster, even though he runs like an 8-second 40 or something like that. There was a linebacker. What was his name? I'm looking at, sorry, give me 1 second. I'm scrolling down right now. And I was just looking at this guy. It's a linebacker. No, it's a guy from Notre Dame, Drew White, the rookie from Notre Dame. I think folks are going to fall in love with Drew White. He's 6 foot, 228, not the biggest guy, but I think you're going to be like, oh man, he's going to solve our linebacker problems, and then he's probably not going to make the roster. But we'll see what he does. What'd you say?
Is he Nico Marley this year? Remember Nico Marley, the little guy?
Yeah,
the Marley nephew or whatever. Yes, he's going to be the new Nico Marley. And but you know what? The good thing is there aren't 100 of those guys on the roster like there used to be, right? That was like the whole bottom of our roster. We're like, take a chance on guys, right? Now we actually have some relatively decent, players at the bottom of our roster. Jimmy Moreland was another one, right? That really came on in the preseason that folks were like, dude, no, this guy's the answer. He got a couple opportunities. I think he made a play in a game or something like that, but then he just bounced around roster after roster after that. And I think this year's Jimmy Moreland could be DJ Sturgis from Missouri Northwestern, the cornerback that we have on the roster too. So that's all part of the fun, man. It's like as a fan, you get to see guys that, we all like the underdogs, right? We like guys that have long shots, and you get to you root for somebody and they don't make the roster or they make the practice squad or so that's part of the appeal of it all.
Have you guys seen? I just saw a picture today, and maybe I just hadn't been paying attention of Cody Barton, and he's a lot bigger than I thought. Like if you remember Cole Holcomb, a little bit thinner, wasn't the biggest linebacker, but certainly had a lot of speed and things like that. But Cody Barton looks a little bit bigger than Cole Holcomb. Is Cody Barton essentially the Mike linebacker for us, that middle linebacker? Because I know. At the end of last season, Jamin had moved into that spot. Obviously, Cole was doing it before, but is that what he's going to be? Because he looks a lot bigger. It almost feels like they brought him in specifically to kind of be that, in between the tackles, thumper, and let Jamin, free him up to do some more things.
I think Cody Barton is kind of one of those guys. Like what they see in him is what they saw a couple of years ago. Guys like Logan Thomas and J.D. McKissick, in that they haven't really been great yet, but they're like on the cusp of becoming like legit players. And I think that's the kind of the bet that they're making on Cody Barton. And I do think that he's probably the middle linebacker because I just don't see it with Jamin Davis. I don't think he's a middle linebacker in the NFL. I think he's he can be a really good Sam linebacker with his coverage skills and his ability to rush the passer. Like I think he could do that. I just don't know that he's a Mike linebacker in the NFL. Cody Barton seems like he might be they might be wanting him to fit that mold of the guy who's just on the cusp of something big. So we'll see what he does this year.
Reminds me a lot of Blake Martinez, that played with the Packers and then the Giants. You know, a guy that probably gets tons of tackles at that middle linebacker position. That's where he plays, but doesn't really ever make an impact play that you remember. That's what I love Blake Martinez, because he was my IDP in fantasy football. So I watched him for a number of years, and that's he just racked up tackles, but you never saw game-changing plays from him. He just made tackles down the field, and so that's what I'm a little bit nervous about with Barton, is he's going to be that guy. Now, from a size perspective, and maybe he's put on weight, but Holcomb was an inch shorter and probably about 3 pounds heavier. So, you know, I don't know. All I remember about Holcomb was I remember listening to a draft podcast with Chris Cooley after he came out of North Carolina, and Cooley was all over that guy. He's so fast, he's going to be amazing. I think in hindsight, Cole Holcomb was decent. For years, we talked about how, you know, just at the point of contact, he was very weak a lot of times, and just always was getting pushed backwards when making a tackle. Hopefully, Cody Barton does something different there. But either way, I mean, I agree with the fact that Jamin Davis probably isn't best suited to be your middle linebacker. Use his athleticism to his benefit. Let him rush the passer. Let him move around a little bit. Let's have some fun playing defense, you know. So we'll see. Okay, Eric, final thoughts.
2 more days of minicamp, and then it's the dark times begin. The dark times will end in July. So enjoy it while it's here, and then just hunker down and get ready for training camp.
That's right. Just survive for 6 weeks, and then it's football nonstop until February. Brian, final thoughts?
Final thoughts. It will always be football on our YouTube channel. We will have some other 5 things videos. Ellie's got a couple. There are going to be some short videos up there. We'll have some articles on the website. So we will keep everyone occupied and busy up until training camp. So stay with us and stay tuned to the YouTube and the website and the audio pod.
No doubt. My final thoughts are this. Quarterback is going to be the most talked about position from now until probably ever, right? Even in the regular season. There's going to be folks arguing to bring Brissett in. There's going to be folks arguing that Sam Howell is the greatest thing ever. We don't know, folks. It is so early in this process. We have no idea. I don't think Ron Rivera's comments today really illustrate any sort of change in my thinking to this point that, hey, Brissett's actually going to take some first-team reps. I'm not buying it, at least nothing of significance, until I see it. And then when I start to see it and the coaches start to lean that way, then we'll have a conversation about a potential real quarterback competition. I just don't see that happening. If it does, I think there's going to be a lot of people that are losing their minds about that, because that really speaks a lot to how they're viewing this season and potentially the future of the franchise. So, but until that point happens, I think it's Howell's job, and that's just what it's going to be until week 1 of the season. So, but we like to hear about it nonetheless. That's it. You know, enjoy your life, enjoy your day. Thank you for listening to us. And we appreciate each and every one of you guys. Commanders for life. We are out of here. Peace. Hey, or whatever the name's going to be with the new owner. I kid.